ready?
Yep.
Okay. So I like to foam roll before a workout. No, it doesn't change the fascia. And there's like all these like anti-foam rolling arguments out there because it doesn't make any permanent structural change, but that's not the point. The point is, if you foam roll, your workout's gonna go better because you feel better. You walk in, you feel stiff, your joints are like, they're kind of achy. You foam roll, that goes away.
So you're foam rolling before every workout?
Yeah.
Okay.
It just makes the whole workout better. And granted, this is kind of, I don't know that I could back this with research, but there's kind of some evidence to suggest that it hydrates the muscle in a way that just drinking water won't. You know how when you take a sponge and you dip it under water and you just leave it, it'll take a while. But if you dip it under water and squeeze it and then release it, it pulls the water in. Squeeze, release, right? You might find, I think, and this is just me thinking, I don't know that there's research behind this, but it's a thought that I have in the back of my mind when I'm doing this. The bottom line though is foam rolling first. The workout's gonna go better just because you feel better. In addition, you have those days where it's like, I don't know if I can work out. We talked about being sore, achy. I'm just not into it today. Like, okay, make the commitment to show up and foam roll. By the time you're done foam rolling, I mean, we're moving around, like I'm getting kind of warm just doing this, right? And I'll spend like 5 or 10 seconds on each spot. If you've got a hot spot, spend longer on it, that's fine. Don't spend more than 5 minutes foam rolling, because it'll change your mindset. But if you just commit to walking in, foam rolling, like you're getting the juices flowing doing this. You're getting some like global general warm up happening just by doing this. Now I'm gonna hit the hamstrings next. I also like these because they dig a bit better and contour to the bones. When you get to the back, your spine goes here. When you get to the hips, you can hit the glutes really well. But it tends to do things, I've noticed, like no matter how good I'm feeling, if I foam roll, I feel better. No matter how crummy I'm feeling, if I foam roll, I feel great when I'm done. And I wanna feel good when I start my workout. So those people who are struggling with like motivation to get in the gym, if we foam roll first, that tends to take care of itself to some degree. There is no surefire thing, but I can tell you that if you feel better, you're more likely to train. So here, you're gonna sit with your right cheek in that rightmost groove.
Okay.
And you're gonna lean to the right.
Hey, you need a whole class on foam rolling.
Oh, very easily. Like we could spend a couple hours on this. There's a lot we can do, especially with these rollers. These are called Rollgas, R-O-L-L-G-A. And there are so many things that we can do with these that replace the lacrosse ball or the big flat foam roller or the rumble roller. You can get a lot of stuff done with just these. So you want to do introductions?
Yeah, that's what it's like. I was trying to figure out when it would throw it in there, but
yeah. I wanted to explain like why we're foam rolling, and then.
So we can do introductions with the back one.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm Mason.
Hey, I'm Mason with Live Oak Testosterone and Weight Loss. I'm here with Brandon at Training from the Ground Up. Brandon, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your history?
My history. I was the injured kid in high school. I sat out a lot of football games due to injuries. Toward the end of my high school and after I got out, I had some pretty bad back injuries that had me at times unable to walk. At its worst, I needed help in the bathroom. I couldn't do it by myself. So after finding good mentors, and who helped me learn my way through that and how to prevent or at least reduce the incidence of injury and recover from injury, I wanted to share that with more people. So I've been a personal trainer for almost 20 years now. I started in 2005, but I started in 2006. And I built my gym in 2014 and have been going ever since. So,
what would you think is your main focus, or do you have like a specialty, or you just kind of, I've heard you say physique things in the past that you work with?
I do love working with physique athletes, but the main focus is on the person who doesn't have time, right? You've got a busy CEO, you've got a stay-at-home mom with 4 kids, or you've got the guy who runs his own business. He's up at 5 a.m. He's got to drive. He's got to get to his place to work until 6 p.m. however long, and he's just got to squeeze it in. So like if you've got 2-3 hours a week, we're there for that. I would say anybody, or the people who have had like previous injuries, the beat up prior athlete, the retired, like, oh, I played this in college, I played this in high school, then I tore my this and I broke my that, because everybody's got some kind of tweak. But I would say the vast majority of my clientele come in because they were scared to go to the gym, and they were scared partially because of previous injuries or because of lack of experience. They've never been to the gym, and they're 40 or older more often than not. So yeah, I would say the busy person.
So today I'm going to get you to just kind of work with, let's say, sort of like me to where I am, mid-30s, maybe a bit of an athlete in the past, nothing crazy, but then life got in the way with career, raising a family, and I just let myself go for a long time, but I'm ready to start getting back into it and how to get back into it safely, effectively, and what I need to be doing in terms of movements and nutrition at the same time. So we'll kind of talk about your thoughts with nutrition and stuff along with just movements in the gym and what you'd put somebody in that demographic through.
Cool. Well, let's finish foam rolling. We'll hit the quads next.
Okay.
Go to the front of the leg, hit knee to hip or knee to belt if you can. You can do this one leg at a time to really dig in and get a little bit higher up there. I usually say like 5 passes up and down on each spot that we hit. Again, we don't want to spend too long prior to our workout. If you want to spend forever on a foam roller, do it right after. It'll work better. Then I like to get here in these grooves, like that, and turn. Hit that lateral aspect. It hits, right?
Yeah, I can definitely feel it.
Knees, backs. You'd be surprised how much your back responds to this.
I'm not as graceful as you are.
Well, that's what makes the workout effective, is how cool you can make foam rolling look. If you can make foam rolling look cool, you're good
Step
at working
one.
out. Yeah, that's the most important thing. We'll go adductors next. Throw your knee on that ridge, and then lift your foot.
Oh. This is going to make me cry.
It hits. Hurts good. And like I said, this just kind of makes the whole workout go better. If you feel better, you're more likely to work harder. And you can feel it, like you're kind of getting warm doing this, right?
Right, yeah.
You're holding yourself up, you're moving around on the floor. I think there's a lot to be said for being on the floor and moving around on it. We don't do that much. And like, what's the number one risk for older people is like falling, not being able to get up, spending time on the floor and moving around on it. Again, a lot of my demographic is, 60 and up, some of them in their 80s. This becomes a really big deal later in life. And so the type of training that I use, I want to make you a mountain. Like, I want to make you physique like a mutant. I want to turn you into a superpowered mutant. But I want that to last. I don't want you to just look good. I want you to have some go. And I want you to have that function. One of the tests for like longevity is like the ability to get up with fewer limbs. If you need to put all the hands on the floor to get up and down versus if you can just pop up. And I've got some people who can do that who are in their 60s and 70s. And those are the people that will live a long time. I had one guy, he's in his 70s. Brick wall fell on him and crushed his pelvis. He was, the type of injury that he had it's not survivable by most people, much less in their 70s. And he's back here working out with us still.
Dang,
After
that's
that,
awesome.
yeah. So like, there's a purpose behind everything we're doing that is not just look pretty in the mirror. Look pretty in the mirror is going to be a side effect of just good training. So
Cool.
let's hit the shoulder and then we'll get into it. So first ridge, put your armpit there, and then rock back. Oh, and there's a piece of the cuff.
Yeah.
And you can hit some of the lats too. But get all the way up there and then down just a little bit. You don't want to roll the ribs. And then same thing other side. Cool. So one of the first stretches that we do is a wall quad. We stretch before we work out, not because we're trying to increase range of motion, though that will happen, but that happens also just through good training. You will, if you're doing a good job with your training, that means you're taking the joint through a full range of motion. So you're gonna get an increase in your mobility just by training correctly. But we're still gonna do this to break out the cobwebs. So put your knee up against the wall or pretty close to it. You should start to feel a stretch already. If not, we bring the other leg forward. You might already feel a stretch. If you don't already feel a stretch, we come up. And
I don't think I can get up.
Yeah, so you don't need to force this. Just wherever you feel a stretch, hang out there. Take a few deep breaths. The breathing kind of signals to the body that it can relax. Once this feels pretty comfortable, we want to pull the belt buckle up into the belly button, and then I'll turn and reach to add to it. But again, we'll just hang out here for a couple of breaths, like 2-3 breaths, and then switch.
Yeah, this is plenty down here for me.
And I can tell you, like, in terms of the gains, putting some meat on your body, building bigger muscles, the better range of motion, the better muscle development. Look at like the best bodybuilders. Those guys can move. Posing requires a degree of mobility that people don't recognize it requires until you try it. And so does training well to put a lot of muscle on your frame. So the better range of motion you have, the more potential for muscle growth you're creating. The next one is posterior hip capsule. This is one that tends to hold back people in their squat, in their leg development. If you're not digging into the posterior hip capsule, if you're limited there, you'll find that it moves the lower back instead. So you're no longer training the hips and legs, you're training the lower back, which isn't the target for leg day. So I'm gonna put my right leg back,
Okay.
rotate in,
Okay.
hold your foot in place,
Okay.
and then just kind of drop and think about bringing your belly button to the floor.
That's nice. That
Right?
feels good.
And now a little bit more, you're gonna push your hips toward me to the left.
Oh yeah, that's
Yep.
crazy.
And then just kind of rock and floss that joint a little bit.
Cool.
This has become one of my favorite stretches. This is one that will
This is
open you up.
impressively good.
Yeah, it feels great.
Yeah.
So this will help you squat deeper, which again, that means better leg gains. And then we'll switch. Left leg back, rotate the foot in, hold it in place, drop your belly button to the floor, and push your hips to the right. One mistake people make with this is they'll do this where they kind of turn and open up. I want you to think, turn your zipper towards your knee and push to the right so you're internally rotated a bit. Sometimes I'll be a jerk about it and like put a foam roller on people's back so they're not tilting and make them keep it level there and not drop it sideways.
Okay.
Okay. Next up, we're back up on all fours. I'm gonna spread the knees as wide as I can. Come to the elbows. You wanna think about pointing your tailbone up, pointing your sternum up, and then using your hip flexors to pull yourself back as far as possible. So here again, squatting deep. You want that leg development, you want a healthy back, healthy hips. I can make some other comments.
So I'm not supposed to just jump right into the heavy weights and
So, I mean, some of the strongest people I know, their warm-up is let me grab the bar and do my first warm-up set. You can do that, and some people can get away with it. I think still, you're just gonna feel better if you do this, break out the cobwebs. I think the people that we're speaking to most likely would do better to do this first. They won't require as many specific warm-up sets, as if they were doing that. And again, if you're struggling with motivation to get to the gym, it's not very exciting. Like, especially if you're a little bit scared of your leg day, because it's like, well, I've got this injury or I've got that knee pain. Why don't we do some things that make those things feel better before we even start? And then by the time you jump in there, instead of your first warm-up set being an empty bar because that's all you can do, you could jump in at like 135 and do a good warm-up set with at least something you can feel. It's one of those things that over 18 years of experience, I have experimented with skipping this and myself just jumping in. And I'm a bendy guy, so I don't have a lot of issues these days, and I'll jump in. I always still feel better if I do this, and I don't need as many warm-up sets.
When you're not talking to somebody else and doing it, how long does it take you to get in a good, decent warm-up?
Oh, 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
once
so-
you get it dialed in, you can do it 5 minutes and then
Oh, yeah.
start. Would you go straight to working? You still build up, or
You still ramp up. Like if you're gonna put 405 on a bar, you're not gonna just put 405 on a bar and start. I might do 135, 225, 275, 315, 405 for one, rest a minute, and then kick it. You know, and I'll probably the heavier I go, the longer I'll rest. But going from 135 to 225, I won't rest. 225 to 275, maybe 20 seconds. You know, it's just catch your breath and then go. So here, I want you to like hold your foot flat,
okay,
pry your knee open, get your zipper to the floor, try to kiss your big toe.
Yeah.
Right? Then I'll come out of it, grab the outside of your foot with your other hand, and get a hamstring stretch as you sit back and straighten your knee. You'll also get a little bit of lat stretch on the left, and then go back into it. And moving in and out of these positions, you'll find you get a little bit more each time. So if I do that a couple times, we get pretty loose pretty fast.
Yeah.
And then get the hip flexors good and warm by stepping in and out of it a few times. And switching. When we set this up, even if you can't, like if you're stuck doing, like that's as far as you can step, start out here, put your hands here, put the leg back, and drop into it, and you're good to go there. When we're warming up with clients, it takes us about 8 minutes to get through all of our stretches.
okay,
We're talking, so it's gonna take a little bit longer.
Right.
But if you want, I can shoot a quick one that we can like speed up for 30 seconds and just show the whole thing in one go.
yeah, that'd probably be good just to get that at the beginning, like, you know, just do this for a quick
Yeah.
workup or
General warm up.
warm up, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then from here on this last one, I like to just knock it over. And we're in kind of a 90-90. If you look at your hips and knees, they're at a 90-degree angle. I'm gonna grab my ankle. Important thing here is to keep your back straight. Pull your chest forward over the shin. Don't come down, because you're trying to stretch the hip, right? This is my spine. I want the hip, so I'm gonna go butt back, chest forward. And there it is. I like to also throw this and like turn into a pigeon at some point by pushing back on the back leg. As you get more mobile, you can do that. But I like to hit that pretty hard. And then we'll turn toward the back leg, push the knees down to get internal rotation on this back hip.
Okay.
And again, all of these stretches, I'm not timing them, I'm holding them for breaths. The breathing is the nervous system. So paying attention to the breath first and foremost while you're warming up helps reduce the stress from the day. And you think about like, oh, I need to take a pre-workout to amp myself up for your workout. No, you need to come down, because with no valleys, there are no peaks. If you're just redlining the whole time, you're stuck in first gear. If you want to hit fifth gear when you get to the weights, you need to first allow yourself to come down. So the breathing can help you come down, relax a little bit, not be so stressed about the workout itself and about the need to perform. Just come in and like make yourself feel better, you know? So over the years, I've come to recognize that pre-workouts often do more harm than good. They actually, when I have people skip them on their tired days, that's when they'll see more PRs, because
Really?
you're resting during your rest periods instead of, I'm still up because I took a pre-workout and I can't adequately rest. So I'm stuck here. You come down, you can hit a peak. All right? Now we're on our feet. So this is the actual like warm-up portion. You're just gonna stand on one foot. I wanna think head to heel is steel, that's all one piece. You're gonna drive your heel to that wall behind you and your hands to that wall in front. And try to get a hamstring and glute stretch. And then come back up, and we'll do 5 on each side. And you'll see people who are really, really good on one leg, there's a lot of carryover. That person is really, really good with a bar on their back too.
Okay.
If you were really, really bad on one leg, that means that when you put a bar on your back, there's gonna be a lot of compensatory actions happening. There's gonna be a lot of like self-stabilization that really, you're like here, I'm covering up some inadequacies. There are some things happening in terms of stabilization and structure at the hip, at the lumbar spine that don't happen, let me rephrase that. There are things that happen here that don't happen here. Muscles that kick on here to stabilize you, starting here, wrapping around the hip, this oblique, they kick on, they also stabilize the spine better when you're under load. So there's a huge argument to be made for single leg training, not over bilateral training, but in addition to, and as hard as, if not harder than.
And all of single leg training typically sucks. So
It always sucks, and it takes twice as long.
which it
But it's
probably
double-
is why it's so good.
Yeah, exactly. It's also more effective.
Right.
And more effective. When I say I want that person to have go, I want that person to last into their 90s. Like,
Right.
it's more effective for that. There's fewer aches and pains, more performance. And if you're talking about sports, all sports occur on one leg except for like rowing and powerlifting.
Right.
All field sports, you don't run like this. You run like this. You run on one leg. So you need to train the nervous system to put out maximum power one leg at a time. So you'll get more out of that. All right, here I like a lateral stance, go pretty wide, toes forward, dig your big toe in, and sit down as deep as you can without letting your heel come up, and come up. As you start with these, most people are kind of stuck here at first, and that's okay. What I would encourage is like, okay, if that's your stuck point, then you're just gonna real slowly sink into it, and work on getting deeper and deeper over the next coming months.
Okay.
Until eventually, and not everyone will get to this point, but until eventually you can do something like this. And this also requires a good degree of strength that might catch you off guard if you're new to it.
And so don't get too
Don't get too
hurried.
zealous, Don't rush it.
to
But I can tell you, again, if you can do this, you're gonna have some pretty good legs on you. Like, they're gonna look good, and they're gonna have some good performance behind them. Then, any kind of staggered single leg stance, like sagittal plane movement, personally, when I've got someone new, I wanna see how their balance is under a narrow base, so I'll have them do this. I'm kind of looking at how they move while I warm them up.
Yeah.
Push the hips forward, hands on your head, we're tall, and then just see how smoothly you can do this. If you're falling over, go ahead and widen that base. Do what you need to do. If you're pretty good at this already, I'd sink into it, get a deep stretch. And if you're really good at it, maybe just wait longer to put that foot down and think of it like a modified pistol. I don't know that I would use pistols to warm up, though I have. Like, you can definitely do it, but this is enough.
Yeah.
I like just playing with these movements as I warm up, especially prior to a leg day. My legs are awake, stabilizers are awake. You put a bar on, You put a bar on top of a system that can do that really well, things are gonna happen much better. Like, things are gonna go better,
Yeah.
right? Then I like a little shoulder stuff. So lock the elbows, pull the bar apart, and just stretch. Eventually it'll just give it to you and you'll be able to go all the way around. So just hang out, stretch for a second.
What if I have to like kink?
Yeah, don't. Don't, okay. No. Yeah, just hang out where you feel a stretch, breathe into it. Come back out of it.
Oh, you're right. It does just.
Yeah.
Work out wide.
It'll just give it to you. You just gotta, if you're patient, and that's gonna be like, that's the running theme through everything we do today. If you're patient, it'll give it to you.
Okay.
If you rush it, things will break,
Okay.
right? One of the things, like if your muscles are cold, they're more brittle. They'll tear more easily. if you haven't been through the full range of motion, how do you know if there's a kink there? So like it's another reason that I want to do a general warm-up before my specific warm-up.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of that. If you have access to a medicine ball, this is kind of a nervous system thing, wakes you up. You lose power faster than you lose strength as you age. So it's the first thing we do. Try and put a hole in the wall 10 times. Gonna come back here, see how far back you can get, and make it come back to you. I like a very light ball, especially when someone is new. 6 pounds. I've worked with guys that have a 400-pound bench. I still make them use like an 8-pound ball. I don't have them grab like the biggest ball they can find.
Okay.
But if you want to later as you get like stupid strong, okay. My rule is the focus is on how rapidly, like how fast can you apply that force. Not like in the sense of how rapid, but how explosive can you be with it. That's all that matters. And then we'll do a little slam, just bounce it as high as you can.
Okay.
Yep, I like 10. Yep, and then for the golfers, for the pickleball players, for the tennis players, rotational power is the big thing in sports. Like that's where the money's at in terms of sport. Whether you're throwing a ball, throwing a punch, swinging a racket, swinging
Golf club.
thank you, golf club.
Yeah.
Swinging a golf club, right? It doesn't matter what you're doing. It's all rotational power, and all of that is done the same way. So I start teaching it from here, right? So I want to see you put the ball in your back pocket. I want to see you finish really tall. I don't want to see you do this, and I don't want to see you do this. Put the ball in your back pocket. You're going to set a target at mid-thigh on the wall. You can see these X's we have on the wall here. That'll be your target. So like if I put that X right there, that way you're finishing the lift because power comes from the floor through the hip. So this is actually what's throwing the ball.
Okay.
Get 5, turn around, get 5 more. Okay. Inside leg up.
So back here.
Yep. All right, hold that start point for me again. Put the ball in your pocket, hold that. We're gonna hinge at that left hip. So now we're loading the left hip for power.
Okay.
And now it can fire. Yeah. And just smash it. Put your eyes where you want the ball to go. And then turn around and hit the other side. Other leg. Good. Yeah, so on that, you're gonna aim, get down real quick. I'm gonna have you, without hitting me, right there. Ugh. Yeah, exactly. Go through it slow and get the pattern. There you go. Feel the difference? That full hip extension, that's your power. And then we'll progress this later. Like we'll take that up to standing where they're just here. We'll take it up to a shuffle. We'll take it up to all kinds of, there are all kinds of progressions for these throws that are a bit more sports specific and have a lot of carryover. But if you're just trying to warm up to get working out, this is fun, get some aggression out, wakes you up. I didn't feel like working out, now I do.
Right.
Box jumps are more about reducing the impact at the landing because you have to think body weight, it's weight times acceleration. So it's 2 to 5 times the body weight when you land. This takes that out of the equation. So it's just soft, step down, don't jump down. Don't stack all these up together. We call that the idiot box. If you're jumping and landing like this, you did not jump higher. You pulled yourself up into a deeper squat and you landed hard, and it doesn't display how high you jump. Like, I want to see your hips translate vertically. That's what I'm looking at, not your feet. So I just keep it at the 18 personally and see how high I can get over it with my legs straight. How many inches can I put between my feet and the box?
Okay.
At 40 years old, how am I doing there?
Right.
I'm gonna have you step down, not jump down. Yeah. Especially for someone who's new.
Right.
And could you skip this and go straight to lifting? Could. It'll work better if you don't.
Yeah, because it just fires faster, everything, so.
So now we're gonna go grab a bar and you're gonna feel a lot better.
Right.
I'd usually do two or three rounds of that, 5 minutes, you know. Again, some conditioning is going, the blood's flowing, you're awake, you're ready to go. So then we get into our squat. So,
Like a goblet.
yeah, so for someone who is fairly new to squatting, who isn't an experienced lifter, I start them with a goblet squat. If they can't do that, we'll do some kind of assisted squat, but we need to establish the pattern. The goblet squat tends to clean up a lot of the patterns and a lot of the mistakes that people make in a back squat.
Okay.
For instance, it'll help you get deeper, it'll help you stay more upright, it'll help you squat more between your legs and less on top of them. Like a lot of the things that I see in a back squat, you see kind of the melting candle squat where they do this number. So with a goblet, holding the weight in front of you tends to keep you pretty honest with your form.
Okay.
We'll elevate the heels to make it a little bit easier to stay upright and hit the quads a bit harder. So we're all the way down, sit down for a second, and then stand up. All the way down with a lot of control, sit for a second, stand up.
Okay.
I'll use this for up to about 50, 60 pounds, and then we'll switch to some kind of a harder variation, usually some kind of barbell or a safety bar.
And then how many reps?
Let's start with a good 8.
Okay. And then, like, with your view of things, like for muscle building, are you like a time under tension guy? Are you a volume?
The research doesn't really back the time under tension thing. Volume is a factor, but it's more of a multiplier. It's really the last reps, depending on your level of training. Like I would call a beginner or a newbie someone with less than 2 years of experience, hard, dedicated, purposeful training. There's working out, and then there's purposeful training. So if you've been doing purposeful training for less than 2 years, you really don't have to push that close to failure to get some good gains. If you are someone who has been at it for a while, you're pretty strong. And I would say pretty strong would be like you could bench your body weight for a set of 10. You can squat more than your body weight for a set of 10. You can deadlift, a body weight and a half for a set of 10 pretty comfortably.
Pretty solid.
Yeah, you're pretty strong. Okay, you probably need to push a lot closer to failure. So in that sense, it's less like do this many reps. It's more like pick a weight that will challenge you within a rep range. So if I say do 8, I'm not telling you stop at 8 if you can do 20. And I'm not telling you fight for 8 even if you can only do 6 and then do 2 really bad, ugly reps.
Okay.
What I am telling you is pick a weight where you're gonna fatigue out before you get to 10, but after you get to 6. Right? So it's more like there's a little bit of give there. You just want those last handful of reps that are like, if the first one looks like this, and you're probably not gonna fatigue the legs quite as much with a goblet squat because you're gonna get a lot more. It's very demanding with the trunk, it's very demanding with a couple other things. So in terms of leg hypertrophy, once you've reached that higher level, we're probably not goblet squatting at that point. But the concept still applies of, if your first rep looks like this, your last rep should look like this. It's equally as pretty, but a lot more shaky, right? So it should be, I look for the bar speed to slow down.
Okay.
Right, does that make sense?
Right.
So you wanna get close to failure, and when I say failure, I mean technical failure. So if you're benching and it looks like this, and then your last few reps look like this, or you're doing something wonky, you're no longer training the target muscles, you hit failure like 3 reps back.
Okay.
So your last rep should be as pretty or prettier than the first one, but it should be grindy, right? Those are the reps that make muscles grow once you've broken past your newbie gains.
Okay. You want me to do these a couple more times?
Yeah, let's do another set. On this next one, something I want to see is elbows inside the knees. Yep. Feet on this, you've got the setup perfect, but for anyone watching, shoulder width, not wider. A lot of people tend to go right here. Right here is pretty dang good. Going wider isn't necessarily going to be better. It's just a compensation for I don't want to use my glutes, so we don't do that unless we are training for something very specifically demanding that stance. Killer. So like once you get past that, I'll usually switch most people, especially if we're just looking for physique, to a safety bar. And like, yes, you can do a leg press, you can do all these things, but there's something to be said for having the pattern, the neural pattern ingrained, because if you're really good at squatting, you're gonna be even better at the leg press. If all you do is leg press, you might do pretty well in terms of your physique, but you're also leaving a lot of gains on the table. You're leaving a lot of neural efficiency on the table. So that 400-pound leg press, it'll work. You get up to that point, you're doing a 400-pound leg press, and then we go and put 200 pounds on a bar and you can't squat it. Like, you're missing a pattern, and that tends to lead to some issues in the joints later on down the line. Especially, like, I work with a lot of people, 60 and up, and you can tell who trained with weights and you can tell who used machines. Okay. Because one of these populations needs more help getting up off the floor. One of these populations, I won't say has more or less pain, but one of these populations definitely moves better and has more energy than the other.
And that's the
that would be the free weight. Yeah, the people who can squat like you just did tend to feel a lot better. Like, the squat's kind of a tell for a lot of things. If you can do this very well, I always screen people when they come in. When I see someone do that on their first screen, like, I know that the rest of the screen is going to look pretty good, and I don't have a lot to worry about. There are still things I'm going to check, but versus the person who comes in is like, yeah, I deadlift or I leg press 500 pounds, but they are kind of like, they do this on their squat and they can't get down any lower. There's some stuff we want to clear up. There's something to be said too for that, like, access to range of motion in the joints. Range of motion is kind of where it's at. Like, the one of the signals for muscle growth, besides getting close to failure, is getting close to failure in a stretch. Like, there's some interesting research that came out recently that showed, like, just stretching. Now, it was an intense stretching session, like 45 minutes held at an extreme angle. Yeah. So it's a painful stretch, but it induced the same degree of hypertrophy and, interestingly, pretty close to the same degree of strength gains as training with weights in the gastroc, in the calves. Okay. The stretch is really important, and more research is backing that up. So if you're like, oh, I can't get my legs to grow, and then I watch you squat and you're doing this, like, that's why you can't get your legs to grow, because you're not squatting. I don't know what you're doing, but it's not a squat. A squat is down there. Okay. Right? So you always want to think, like, how can I safely put my muscles on a stretch under load? And then the mistake people make there is they go way too heavy, This is probably going to be enough to elicit hypertrophy, even for someone like you, who I know you squat like 400 pounds pretty comfortably. We can do this in such a way that it will elicit some hypertrophy for you, even though you're that strong. Yeah, it might take a lot of reps, but if we're setting you up like this, we're taking our time, we're pushing those knees forward, we're going to sit there.
Yeah, you'll
lots of control.
definitely
like,
fatigue.
Your legs are going to feel that. Yeah. And then, of course, you'll get used to it and we'll have to load you up even heavier. But a lot of people make that mistake of, like, go hard, go heavy, or go home. And the reality is, it's like anything else. You have to get through kindergarten before you can get to calculus. And a lot of people want to skip straight to calculus.
And we want to do this for 30 years, 40, the rest of their life.
40, 50, 60, 70 years.
Yeah.
The goal isn't get as big as fast as possible, because there are laws that will, there are physical laws that will prevent you from getting big fast.
Right.
And at the end of 10, 20 years, you can be the big guy who didn't sustain a lot of injuries, or you can be the guy with a bunch of scars who, kept getting held back by his injuries, or you took all the drugs. You're going to be the same degree of bigness at the end of 10 years if you went too fast with drugs or if you went slow and took your time. The difference is this guy's going to be a lot healthier and have a lot more longevity, and he doesn't require the drugs to look that way.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think those are some of the mistakes, especially young people make. They let me just rush that and get on the steroids. It's it's really not that. You have to be patient. You have to take your time and understand that this is a long-term process. Fat loss is actually pretty fast when you compare it to muscle gain, because muscle gain it's years. You'll talk to a guy who's like, I'm bulking, and he's like 6 weeks. That's not a bulk. That's a cut. Right. and that's a shortcut. Yeah. But a bulk is years with some mini cuts interspersed, but it's a years long process. You build your biceps in 5-10 years, not 5-10 weeks.
Right.
You know, so.
You want me to do another one of these? What do you?
Yeah, so something I like to do while your legs are resting, we'll hit some rows, we'll do some back work.
Okay.
Something I like to see, abs tight, big stretch at the bottom,
Okay.
chest way up, and squeeze. The end of the set, you probably won't break past 90,
Okay.
but you'll do those the same degree of fatigue. So
Okay.
somewhere between 10 and 20. You can step back to make it easier, you can step forward to make it harder. In the beginning, the first 6 weeks training this way, where you're kind of doing these supersets like this, it's gonna hit your cardiovascular system, your cardiopulmonary system a lot harder. Your conditioning will suffer more than your muscles at first, but once you're acclimated to it, it won't. And you'll have the conditioning to boot. So you can get the same degree of growth, hypertrophy, and also have conditioning. Now, I am one of those guys who will also caveat that and say, let your strength be strength, let your conditioning be conditioning, and don't combine the two. So once you start doing this, you do want to rest long enough that you've caught your breath between sets, that your heart rate has come down between sets. We often wear heart rate monitors, and this will be your last rep right there. That was good. We'll often wear a heart rate monitor that shows on a screen where someone is. I tell them to get their heart rate under zone 2, preferably into zone 1, before their next set. Okay. So that means you've caught your breath, your legs feel fresh again, you know. Your back might not be fresh, but your legs are ready, and you kind of feel good to go. And at that point, we hit the squat again. Okay. So now you're getting, and there was some research that came out recently that showed as good or better gains using supersets this way, non-competing supersets. The difference is it is harder, it's more metabolically costly, so the benefit there is you might end up being a little bit leaner. There's some stuff we still don't know, but in my experience over the last almost 20 years now, every time we've applied this kind of principle of lower, upper, we've seen people get leaner much more easily than if we're just gonna do the traditional straight sets. Let's do all our leg work today, back tomorrow, chest today, hit a set, rest, hit a set, rest. There's a time and a place for that. I don't think it's for the general physique change person. I don't think it's for the person who's looking to.
Do you do it? Would I do something like this daily? Do I do a day and then rest a day? 2 days?
So my thing is start with the minimum effective dose.
Okay.
If you're new, 2 sets is a really good place to start. 2 working sets. So like you've done warm-ups. If you've never moved a weight in your life, the warm-up is a work set. That counts. If you've been at it for a year or 2, okay, warm up, 2 working sets, which means 2 sets where you pushed close-ish to failure. And then you'll titrate up for a couple of weeks. You might find that if you're really, really sore, you did more than you needed. You should be yeah, I feel it, but I'm good. You shouldn't be crippled. You should be pleasantly sore,
okay.
Right? Pleasantly sore, not I can't wash my hair. Yeah, that didn't get you more, that didn't elicit more hypertrophy than if you had just done 2 sets. It just made you more sore.
Especially if you're out for a week after that.
Yeah, especially that.
Yeah. You're missing workouts from being
exactly.
sore and everything.
So, yeah, I would do this. We typically have everyone do 3 times a week as a starting point, as a gold standard.
Okay.
That's most people. You can get a lot done in 3 times a week that would surprise you. I've had people who come in who have been doing 5 times a week and they got better results on 3. Not because, we reduced the volume and that was magic. No, more volume does multiply it. You'll get more. You'll be more tired. But more volume can be better once you're acclimated to it.
Hit this again.
Yep.
And also,
but
just getting adequate rest out of them as well.
Yeah, recovery is the piece. You're not growing in the gym, you're growing when you're sleeping.
Right.
But I wouldn't worry too much about that in the beginning phases. I'd rather you train every day pretty easy and get used to it. Because the funny thing is we will occasionally have someone who comes in and they're man, I'm really sore. It's okay, great, let's work out. And it'll work the soreness out a lot faster.
Okay.
So my advice is don't put more than 2 days of rest between workouts. And in the beginning, at least, don't work out every day. If you're doing this kind of stuff, definitely don't work out every day. You don't need to.
Okay.
If you are gonna do that kind of bro split, push-pull legs, 6 days a week thing,
Yeah.
well, you're resting your legs while you're working your back. You're resting your back and legs while you're working your chest. If you're gonna do the split, most people, I think the people that we're talking to, the busy family man who has a job, who maybe has 3-4 hours a week at most to dedicate to this thing, just do full body 3 times a week. And that means try not to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then rest for 4 days. Because then you're going to be trashed when you get back in.
Right.
Like, space it out, you know?
Do you think you could effectively get an entire, what we need to be done in just 30 minutes?
Yeah,
2
absolutely.
to 3 times a week.
Absolutely. I mean, what you just did trained almost every muscle in your legs. I would want to hit calves and hamstrings on top of it, but that takes like 2 minutes to hit the calves. And we could also, we could go squat, row, calf raise, right? And be done there. And then the second circuit could be, it could be a bench press. I like some kind of deep push-up, even better. There's less setup and more room. So here, all the way down into the deepest stretch you can get, and up. All the way down into the deepest stretch you could possibly get. Pause in that stretch, because that's where the money's at. And back up. And we can superset that with a hamstring movement. We could do, if you're in a gym with leg curl machine, you could do leg curls. I personally, again, I have that functional bias. I'm gonna want the single leg deadlift, which this one we start people out with body weight and have them learn to reach and get a stretch here. And as you get more mobility, you'll find you can get further and further and further. A lot of people will start out, that's as far as they can get. But you kind of work on getting that balance and that range of motion. I've seen people do that with over 300 pounds for reps from the floor.
Gosh, yeah.
Right? And those people, I can tell you, they could not deadlift 600 pounds. So there's some funny things happening in the nervous system when you go to one leg, where you can put more weight per leg when you do a single leg. So that's gonna be my bias. It's like push up, single leg deadlift, and then you wanna throw in some arm stuff, okay. Let's just do an arm circuit at the end. Okay. But this little circuit will take you 10, 15 minutes tops.
Yeah.
That'll take you 10, 15 minutes tops, and then 5 to 8 minutes for arms, and you're good. Okay. You've hit the whole body in 30 minutes. And you got some conditioning out of it as a side effect.
Right.
Just because you're doing this more efficiently.
Okay.
I would superset lower body with upper body. I love doing lower body push, so I would think a squat is a lower body push versus a deadlift, which is a lower body pull. It's kind of how I look at it, is are the legs pushing or pulling? So anterior chain, quad, knee dominant, however you want to categorize that. A knee dominant pattern with an upper body pull, so there's no carryover in between the two. So while my legs are resting, I can come over here and work my back.
Okay.
Could you do this on a machine? Yes. I'm thinking minimal, I'm thinking functional, I'm thinking what's really efficient for time. Because a machine, if you're supersetting with someone, you're gonna have to work in with people. It also doesn't have a lot of carryover to real life. There are times you're gonna have to pick yourself up, Yeah. After the squat, we've already done squats and rows. Let's do push-ups and single leg deadlifts again.
Okay.
So again, on that push-up, I might grab something like this where you get I like the handles. On these, I want you to pull your belt buckle into your belly button. I see a lot of push-ups that look like this, and it's wrong. I want to see this. We're gonna get as deep as we can. Hold the stretch. I'm touching my chest, not my belly. Up. Deep. Stretch. All the way up. If you can do 20 like that, at that point, I'll start piling plates on your back or loading you somehow.
Okay.
There are a lot of ways we can load these. But again, time efficient, space efficient, low injury risk. Yeah, so come back up for me. I'm gonna have you bring your hands forward a little bit. Good. Let your elbows flare, and then we're gonna tuck right here, get away from my hand. Maintain that and bring your chest to the floor. Don't let your face or belly touch, make your chest touch. Yeah, and again, let those elbows flare.
Out here?
Yeah. Because I'm not thinking triceps, I'm not thinking shoulders, I'm not thinking chest, but I am thinking I want all three, and I want to hit that chest hard. Hold it, up, good. Come down again, hold the stretch hard, control it, good, yeah. Big stretch, hard stretch, nice. And again, failure is when your form changes. But also don't quit just because it got hard. Like, oh man, I'm starting to grind. Good, that was your first growth-inducing rep. Like all the reps do stuff for you, but the only ones that grow new muscle are the ones where the bar speed slows or where you are having to grind a bit. So grind. Just don't let it get ugly. And if you're doing sets of 50 of these, you're wasting time. These need to be hard enough you can't do 20.
Okay.
And if you're doing them that way, they probably will be for a very long time.
It's pretty hard, yeah.
It's pretty challenging. So we'll do that. Then we'll go into, I love the single leg deadlift. Yes, your first month or two of this is gonna be more skill. It's not gonna grow a lot of new muscle necessarily. Maybe in the hips and the glutes to protect you later, but this is gonna be more about getting that balance. And once you've got that balance and you learn how to stretch your hamstring, so here is gonna be more glute dominant. If I bend that knee and some quad, I want more hamstring. So I'm gonna sit back into my heel. I'm gonna straighten my knee a bit, and that means I can't go as low because now my hamstring is pulling hard, right? I'm gonna drive this heel up and back, and I'm gonna go real slow and push that hamstring to its limit. I wanna try and tear the meat from the bone. When you get to the point, you can do 8 of these in a row without putting your foot down on the floor, and it looks like that, and then you're able to come back up. We don't even have to tap for balance. We're gonna start loading you. Yeah, push that knee back, push the hips back, aim your tailbone upward. Yep. I'd even keep the leg a little tiny bit straighter. If you're already feeling a hamstring stretch, I'd still push it, you won't get as low. Yeah, there you go. Feel it?
Yeah,
So one of the mistakes people make here is they'll turn out again, like we talked about with the hip stretch earlier.
Okay.
Turn your zipper in. Try and point your zipper towards your pinky toe. That's gonna get you in that posterior hip capsule. That's gonna get the hamstring. That's gonna get you better balance, and again, longevity in the joints. And again, could we just do a leg curl to hit the hamstrings? Yeah. Could we just do a hip thrust to develop the glutes? Arguably not really. Like the hip thrust doesn't work that well to grow glutes. Sorry. You have to stretch the thing. We can do things that focus on just glute max, and it'll grow. Or we can do things that focus on the entire complex, and it'll grow and have a more complete round shape. If you want the more complete development, you don't need to add a specific glute exercise. This will do it. This will grow glutes better than most other exercises that I've seen. In my experience, doing this and being able to do this with external load grows more glutes better than anything else. Better than traditional squats and deadlifts. Especially once you start loading these. So we'll start loading these with a single dumbbell at first. To encourage that internal rotation, we'll load the opposite. So you slap your leg with your free hand, that leg stays on the ground. Get a big hamstring stretch and pull up through the heel.
Okay.
Big stretch, pull up. When that gets pretty easy, we'll take a pair of bells. Same thing. Lock in the lats and treat it like an RDL. Big hamstring stretch, pull it up. Note the control, note the tempo. Big stretch, pull up, right? You get to the point, you can do that with the 60s. We can start playing with a bar. The bar is a little bit different, feels different, but it has a higher ceiling. Big stretch, pull up. Add 5 pounds a week, ad infinitum, right? So let's do another set of push-ups.
Okay. Something we get asked a lot is, I just want to lose belly fat. Can you spot reduce fat?
Yes, but not in a way that you'd notice. So if we did a spot reduction thing, it would be statistically significant. We could see it under a microscope. We would not see it with the naked eye. So for all intents and purposes, no, you can't.
What if I wrap my belly with a wrap to make it sweat more?
Then you'll make the muscles in that area less efficient, leading to less fat loss in the long term, because now you're not actually using them as well. They're dehydrated, and dehydrated muscles don't perform very well. You actually want to stay very well hydrated. That's really good if you need to drop water really fast, but if you're trying to reduce belly fat, sorry, it's diet. This kind of training will get you a little kickstart, and it helps, like it burns some calories, but you can easily eat that same amount of calories in a minute or less, in seconds. So it really does come back down to nutrition. However, by the time you lose all that body fat, you want something to show for it. You want some abs, spelled with a Z, right? Well, you have to build the muscles to do that. And so, good training, right? So now you're winded. I'd let you catch your breath, and then I'd have you do another set
Okay.
of single leg deadlifts
Okay.
after you catch your breath.
Yeah, I still have to catch my breath. What else? What's another good question just for the deal? I've heard you talk about peak weeks, rest weeks. Do I really have to take a rest week, or can I just keep building week after week after week?
It depends. So if you are extremely committed, if you are extremely very plan oriented and driven, and you're the type of person who will kind of lose their mind if you skip a workout, you definitely need to be periodizing. If you're just an experienced lifter, yeah, you should still have ups and downs. So the way I look at that is you have a mesocycle that is anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks long. I just call it a phase, but it's a mesocycle. So in week 1, lower volume, maybe you're leaving a few reps in the tank, 2-3 reps left in the tank. By week 5, higher volume, maybe you're doing 2 or 3 more sets than where you started. So if you started at 2 sets, maybe you're ending with 4 or 5. And you're not leaving as many reps in the tank. So you're not training to failure necessarily at any point, but you should be getting fairly close. And closer as that phase progresses. From week 1, it's oh yeah, that was hard. I might have gotten 2 more. Cool. Week 4, yeah, that was hard. I can't do another one unless I alter my form or have someone help me in the spot. And training beyond failure with those forced reps, having a spot lift the weight for you and you control it, high risk, low reward. In terms of the increase in stimulus, the juice ain't worth the squeeze. You're not gonna notice that in a year. You will not be able to tell the difference between the guy that left a rep in the tank and the guy that trained beyond failure after a year of training. You're just not gonna see it in the mirror, so it's not worth it. But the risk is definitely there. So yeah, if you're brand new, I would rather you spend that first year getting really, really oriented with a routine, with the habit of showing up. For a lot of people, the struggle isn't how do I do my workouts, the struggle is how do I work out at all? How do I make myself get to the gym? And the answer is you commit to showing up, not to working out. If all you did was pull into the parking lot, park, turn off the car, and then start it and drive away, you actually made progress that day because the day before you didn't do anything.
Right.
Eventually, more often than not, I don't see that happen. Maybe one day someone is having a mental breakdown from something that's happening in their life and they have to drive away. Okay, but they showed up, right? More often than not, if you commit to pulling into the parking lot and turning off the car, you're gonna get out of the car, you're gonna walk into the gym. If you walk into the gym, you're probably gonna foam roll, because we already talked about that. If you foam roll, you're probably gonna stretch a little bit. If you stretch, you're probably gonna get up and do some of that warm up. If you warm up, you might as well start jumping around a little bit. If you don't have access to that, you might as well just go grab a bar or a light weight and start doing a warm up set.
Yeah.
Well, I've already done a warm up set, let's try a little more weight.
Yeah.
It's not, hey, I've got to bench 315 today. It's, I've got to bench today. And then it becomes, I've got to bench 1 rep more or 1 pound more than last week.
Right.
But that mindset is a gradual change from the warm-up to the workout. Now, if you had walked in today and just started doing push-ups and single leg deadlifts, you wouldn't have had the same range of motion that you just had.
Right.
Had we not done the foam rolling and all the things. And again, foam rolling, does it change the structure? No, but does it open a window?
Right, yeah.
It opens a window for you to make some change.
What about nutrition and fluids pre, intra, and post workout? What do you think is
I think
best?
It's one of those things that a lot of people are mowing the lawn while the house is on fire. Get your daily protein intake in total spread across 4 meals if you can, or boluses or feeding opportunities. I don't like saying the word meal because a lot of times you say meal to one person and it means this, and you say meal to another person and it means this. And I don't like saying snack because that indicates it's not a meal, so it doesn't count. So people don't tend to pay attention to it. And I never want someone to be mindless about their eating. So I would say, if you're getting 30 to 60 grams of protein 4 times a day, you've got a lot of your nutrition bases covered. If you're drinking water throughout the day, first thing you drink in the morning, and you're drinking pretty regularly throughout the day and you're not thirsty, that base is probably pretty well covered. Do you need to drink a gallon a day? Probably not. Most people don't. I like to.
Yeah.
But I think the actual math is like 1 liter per 1,000 calories you expend. I don't like saying the word burn because you don't actually burn them, you oxidize. But it's like 1 liter per 1,000 calories is like the actual math, at least based on the textbooks that I read 20 years ago. But really, if you're not thirsty, you're probably okay. If you're not having cravings, you're probably okay, as long as you're drinking some water. So, and hydration is a thing that takes hours. It's not a thing where it's like, okay, I haven't had any water today and I'm at the gym. You are dehydrated. And if you start drinking now, you'll be well hydrated in 3 or 4 hours. But it's not gonna happen during your workout. Be careful in that workout because your muscles are more brittle. Get in there, set your standard and improve 1% every week.
Is the anabolic window a thing for post-workout?
Not in a meaningful way, no. The anabolic window is like the next 24, 36, 48 hours after your workout. And by then, it's time for your next workout. So just get your protein throughout the week. In longitudinal studies, we don't really see a difference between people who get that protein shake in now versus people who just get their total daily protein.
As long as you're getting it throughout the day.
As long as you're getting it. Now, if you're doing it all in one, that's objectively not going to work quite as well. You're probably going to throw up too. It's just not going to be easy to eat, 200 grams of protein in one sitting. I'm a good eater. I've eaten a half a gallon of ice cream after a 16-ounce steak in one sitting. I don't know that I could do 200 grams of protein in one sitting and not throw up or fall asleep halfway through.
Right.
So I don't recommend it. 4 times a day seems to work best.
Um,
Or at least it's a great starting point.
when we are at the beginning, just starting back and everything, I'm wanting to build muscle and lose fat at the same time. Is that possible? Should I focus on one?
In the beginning, it's absolutely possible. And I see it all the time. We run a 6-week, we call it a 6-week challenge. It's really more like, hey, here's 6 weeks of how easy it can be to structure your meal plan. And here's 6 weeks of practicing with that meal plan. And then at the end of that, we kind of go over okay, here's how you can make this last for life. Here are the habits you can implement. Here are the things that we can work around in your okay, this is my non-negotiable. I do my ice cream Friday every Friday. Cool, let's put that into the plan. You're not cheating, you're planning, right? You're accounting for it.
Right.
But in terms of can you build muscle and burn fat at the same time, if you're new to this thing, it happens all the time. It happens every time we do that 6-week challenge. Everybody who is new to training who does that, they build muscle, they burn fat, every single one of them, every single time.
Okay. What about America as a whole? We just overconsume. Everybody's busy, everybody's stressed. Do you have any tips for the day you've ate perfect? At the end of the night, you're home, you're in a safe space, and you have access to your home. Mm-hmm. How do you keep from overeating, or how do we control that within the plan and everything?
It is context dependent from person to person, but I would say you probably didn't eat perfect. You probably underate during the day and think it was perfect because it was less. When we put people on that 6-week challenge, almost all the time I get the feedback, this is a lot of food, I don't know if I can eat all of it. There's a difference between eating a lot of food volume and eating a lot of calories.
Right, yeah.
It's really easy to eat a lot of calories here. It's also really easy to eat very few calories here. Just
What's your
depends
favorite
on
high volume?
High volume foods. I really love making a stir fry with like the broccoli Normandy frozen vegetables.
Yeah.
That's a jam.
Nice, yeah. Cool.
And you've got a giant bowl of vegetables with maybe a little bit of sauce on them, and I'm not talking about like dump the sauce on them, but like 2 tablespoons of sauce, that's not gonna end your day. And especially if you got like a reduced calorie sauce, a lower fat, no sugar added, something, or just good seasonings. Like, good seasoning and some salt goes a really long way.
Yeah.
So like that can absolutely fill you up for the day, and then you'll accidentally undereat, and then you'll have cravings at night because you underate, right? But generally, if you eat that many vegetables, you're probably not going to get a lot of cravings.
Also helps get the fiber that we, as a whole, are lacking in
Yep.
almost
and
across the board.
Exactly, and the fiber from vegetables specifically, that's your best probiotic. You can take probiotics, and sometimes that's necessary. But your best probiotic is the fiber you get from vegetables. That's what's going to have the absolute biggest impact on your gut biome. And I know a lot of people are worried about their gut bacteria these days, and like, okay, then eat your vegetables.
Yep.
And you'll be okay.
Well-rounded, you get vegetables and various things throughout the day. Throw in some fermented food here and there, and that's about the best probiotics you can get.
Absolutely. And then on the flip side of like, okay, or coming back to the like stress eating at night. Let's say you did actually eat perfect throughout the day. Let's say you had 3 meals out of the 4, and you nailed it. Your coach gave you a meal plan, and you followed it to a T. And then meal 4, you're like eyeing the cookies, or you're looking at that cereal, or you're thinking about the ice cream, or you're looking at that big juicy steak. Hey, if that's a sirloin, we're probably okay.
Yeah.
If it's chuck, if it's a ribeye, we probably need to have a conversation about your food choices. Not that that's bad, we can make it work, but
just calories.
if you're just gonna like eat mindlessly, the mindless is the key word here. So I want to practice some mindfulness, and I'm gonna sound like a hippie, but mindfulness meditation in the research has been shown to be very, very effective for this type of issue, for stress eating at night. Now, if you're like under eating during the day, you're starving yourself during the day, you're gonna have some rebound hunger. If you're just having cravings and it's like, okay, I'm stress eating, take 5 minutes and meditate first. Why are you feeling the need for this? What is the emotional need? Is there an emotional need? Is there a physical need? Am I hungry? Am I craving? Let's differentiate first.
Right, yeah.
Right? There are a lot of strategies that when I work with nutrition with a client, more of it is psychology than physiology. And the certification that I went through, there was a physiology textbook for nutrition and then a psychology textbook for change psychology. This is where all the work really occurs. The food is the easy part.
Right.
How do I do it is the hard part. So there are a lot of strategies that we'll use to reduce the stress eating in the evening, including, okay, I don't have time to meditate. Then you need to work on your day-to-day. Like you need to keep a journal of your time. What did you do from 12 to 12:30? From 12:30 to 1? From 1 to 1:30? How much time were you on your phone? How many hours were you on social media? How much TV did you watch? How much time did you spend mindfully reflecting on the things in your head? How much time did you think about your breathing? How much time did you spend with family with no distractions? Were you mindlessly eating with distractions? Were you mindfully eating, closing your eyes, tasting, sitting with, smelling the atmosphere, feeling your butt in the chair, feeling your weight against the floor? Like how mindful were you? These are the things that are gonna have the biggest impact on the effort moments. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, cool. I want to lift something a little heavy too.
Let's do something heavy.
Finish it up.
You're a deadlifter. You want to deadlift?
I want to squat.
You want to squat? Let's
Yeah.
squat. Hey, Reg, are we using this one?
No, it's all you.
Just what I am honestly a lot more warm than I typically am, so
Yeah, right?
I want to, just see how I feel with it.
We'll
And
put this
then-
one up on 17.
What'd you do, 17?
Yeah.
I'm dumb.
Nah, you just gotta get used to it. Okay. I like a heel elevation. There's
Okay.
no reason not to do it.
That way you can critique as I get to heavier weight
Yeah.
as well.
Let's do it. Candace!
Hey, Brandon.
Hi! Rick! I'm gonna touch you later. nervous now. Let's get some callers.
I lift by myself, and so I don't use collars typically, but I have safety racks under me.
Yeah, I mean, if you're by yourself, it's a little different. You need to be able to dump it.
Yeah. Just want to see.
Yep, so same rules apply here. We're gonna sit all the way down with a lot of control on the way down. Hold that for me where you're at. I want you to eyes forward. Come back up and hold it for me. All the way up. So stand there. Eyes forward. In fact, look like halfway down the wall. Keep your eyes right there. I want you to pull your belt buckle up into your belly button just a little bit and hold it right there. Keep your knees locked. Take a deep breath in through your nose, trying to inflate here.
Okay.
Hold your breath. Use your hip flexors to pull yourself into the squat, forcing your knees forward and out. Pretty.
Do I need belts, knee sleeves, knee wraps?
If you do, I think you're a power lifter, and you're probably going heavier than you need to for physique development and just strength development.
Okay.
I'm not opposed to using any of those things.
Yeah.
I use a belt sometimes, especially when the weight gets heavy and I'm in a more higher intensity, lower volume phase, I'll use a belt. Or if I'm dieting down, because you're a lot more prone to injury if you're in a caloric deficit.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be a lot easier to hurt yourself, especially if you're very, very strong. But do you need them? No, I mean, you should by all rights. If you're doing everything right, you should be fine.
Be protected.
If you're not fine, it's usually a yellow flag, like, hey, there's probably something you're missing in your plan. You're either overdoing something, or if you're doing the volume like we already talked about and you're titrating your volume correctly, it shouldn't be an issue. So there's something else happening. And sometimes, like, if you're in the car and your tires are doing this and you're just driving around town, you don't really notice, it's not a big deal, but you go on a road trip or you get on the track, you're gonna notice this. And so the weights will point these things out to you. They're like, hey, I need work. This is why I like the single leg stuff. Because if you're really, really solid on your single leg work, you'll find that when you get to the bilateral lifting, it's pretty comfortable and you've got more range of motion, it doesn't hurt, you're really good at it without really trying to. You don't have to think about it so much. So I would say take it as a yellow flag. Doesn't mean stop lifting, doesn't mean don't wear a belt or don't wear knee sleeves. It just means, hey, check your corners, see where you're at.
Cool.
So what I want you to do on your next set, we'll hit 225 next. I want you to start out there so that when you come down, instead of this, do you see that? I want this.
Okay.
And you pull straight down.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It feels almost like flexion. It's not flexion, but it feels a little bit like it. There you go. Thanks. I am the way.
So something that during the appointments that I have, I tell people that I like them to count calories for a little bit, and that's typically met with a exasperation. And I'm not doing it because that's exactly what I want to do, but I want them to have calorie awareness of everything that they're intaking, and see what is hiding that they don't think about. Measure out the food, everything. Do you have any tips for? One, making that an easier process that's maybe better received, or emphasize the importance of actually being calorie aware kind of across the board?
I think it's going to depend on the type of person you're working with. If you're working with someone who has counted calories in the past and has been a chronic dieter, you probably want to stay as far away from numbers as possible for that person. So I would more worry about like, okay, here's serving sizes, and let's establish like a regular eating routine first. And let's get that down. Let's go a little bit slower on the way down for me. More control. There you go. Try not to bounce out of the bottom for me. I want you to sit there and squeeze. Clinch it up. There you go, better. And then when you stand up, don't think up. I want you to think push down. It's a leg press, not a squat.
Okay.
So you're not standing up, you're pushing the floor down.
Okay.
Everything in weightlifting is down. A deadlift isn't lifting, it's pushing the floor down. A squat isn't standing up, it's pushing the floor away.
Okay.
Right? But for that person who I don't want to touch numbers. Okay, let's establish an eating schedule. Let's see where your point A is. in change psychology, what we see is like, and really in any skill acquisition, skill development, you want to start where the person is and give them plus 1%. If you give them plus 5%, it's too much, they'll burn out. If you keep them where they're at, they're not going to get anywhere. So like, this is the way I like to describe the comfort zone idea is like, okay, here's your comfort zone now, and this is the lifestyle you're living, and these are the results you're getting as a result, right? You're 350 pounds, you've got knee pain, and you really want to lose weight, but you're not sure what to do. Okay, these are your habits, and this is what it's led to. Here's 185 pounds or 200 pounds with no knee pain, and here are the habits that lead to that. I don't want to take you and just pluck you and put you over here. That's going to be way too much psychologically. And for some people, there's always an exception. But for the bell curve, the 80%, what I want to do is touch up against the edge of your comfort zone and hang out there until it shifts a little bit. And so now, like, yeah, we're not perfect. We went from, 3 Big Macs and a large Coke to 2 Big Macs and a Diet Coke. That's progress. That's a killer. Yeah. All right. We went from I don't know what I eat to I know that I eat at these times, eat every day. This is my schedule. That's huge. We went from I don't know how much sleep I'm getting or I'm sleeping really poorly to I'm going to bed 10 minutes earlier. That's huge progress, right? Let's hang out there. When that feels fairly automatic, let's bump up against the edge of that comfort zone again. It's like a bubble that you don't want to pop. If I shoot you out the side, it's going to pop the bubble and you'll just come right back to it.
Right.
I'm going to just gently tap the edge of your comfort zone. Take your habits from where they currently are and stretch them. It's like silly putty. If I stretch too fast, it breaks. But if I go real slow, I can get that silly putty to stretch pretty far.
Right.
And if I stretch you enough, the cool thing that happens, these new habits start to become more comfortable. And as a result, these old habits start to become more uncomfortable. That's the thing I think people miss that. It's like, oh, I'm going to fall back into my old ways. Well, then you didn't really do this over here. When this becomes comfortable, this becomes uncomfortable. So that's a double whammy. That's a win.
You got to change the entire environment. Like the environment's going to dictate a lot of what it is. So you have to make those little changes that you see and do every day.
Yeah, and you want to do some of that you can do up front right now. Like, okay, let's not buy this food. Some people will respond well to that. Some people will respond with, I'm going to go get some pizza, right? Don't tell me what to do, right? It is physics. For every action, there's going to be an equal and opposite reaction. If I come up to you and I push you, you've got to maintain balance. You're going to push back.
Yeah.
You're probably going to push back. Like this bar is going to push you down. You're going to put force into the ground and push it back up. If I want someone to change, I need to pull them.
Okay, yeah.
So I need to be really gentle about that and almost sneaky. So I've got some clients who like, the success reports to me are, hey, I binged, but it's been 3 weeks since my last one, and I used to do it twice a week.
Nice, yeah.
Okay, we're making progress. I'm not going to try to change the binge directly, but I will use it to judge, like, how are we progressing?
Yeah.
Okay, it was less frequent. Also, when I did it, I stopped halfway through. Okay, we're really making progress.
Yeah.
I went on vacation, and I didn't feel the need to overconsume. I enjoyed my food. I stopped when I was satisfied. I didn't feel the need to drink a bunch of alcohol. I had a great time, and I came back at the same body weight I left at. That's how I know we made progress.
Nice.
If your body weight's doing this, because you're crash dieting, binging, and purging, we're not making any progress. We're setting you up for failure. So I want to be really gradual with the behavior change. It is a slow process. And again, you have to start in kindergarten before you get to calculus. And while nutrition is a very simple, it's simple to apply, like, hey, eat 4 meals a day, eat, 6 to 9 ounces of a lean protein source, eat the same amount in terms of vegetables, eat a handful of carbs and a thumb-sized serving of fat. That'll get you shredded real fast. Like that alone, that's your diet. For those of you who just wanted a diet, there it is. Like, that's it. That'll get you shredded. How do I make that my lifestyle? One piece at a time. Yeah. Right? That's the calculus. But some people are in kindergarten. And some people are ready for it. You can just give them a diet and they'll do it.
Yeah.
But more often than not, there's more to it. What about the days where, like, I had a long day at work and I just don't want to eat the meal that I had prepped? What about the days where I've got to go to a work meeting and it's at this restaurant and it's at my favorite restaurant that I always love going to? How do I navigate that? What about when I go out of town? How do I navigate that? How do I navigate my kid's birthday party? And then there's the parent tax. Well, my kids won't eat unless it's this. And then, of course, I eat what's left on their plate.
Yeah.
How do we navigate those things? Like, it's really easy to write you a diet that gets you shredded. But how do we learn to navigate life?
Yeah, the human existence along with it.
At the end of the day, we are still dealing with humans. We're not dealing with just biology.
Right.
We're dealing with humans.
Yeah.
So we have to address the emotional component. We have to address the why behind every decision. And we have to be very mindful in our approach. So I would say for that person who doesn't want to count the calories, encourage them not to. Rather, let's just increase some awareness. Why don't you write down how much you think you had, or weigh it, or do something else to measure it? Was that a cup and a half? Was that 6 ounces or 7? Do that, and then write it down. And then, next to that, write down a timestamp. Write down why you ate that food specifically. Write down how hungry you felt before and after. Write down who you were with there. And then a lot of times your food triggers are they can be up to 12 or even 24 hours prior. Like, I've seen a food trigger hit 36 hours later. So I was with this person and it stressed me out, and I finally broke a day later and had to eat the ice cream. Had to. The trigger was way back here. So, okay, write down who you were with and how you were feeling an hour before. And if you're a constant, if you're an emotional eater, write down who you were with and how you were feeling 6 hours before and 12 hours before. And let's look. Okay, in that time, where was your you time, where you had time to decompress and process? Did you get any? If not, you can bet, this is just, okay, if this trigger, then this outcome. If this trigger, then you time and decompression, then this outcome. And you can start to develop a system once you observe all of the points of contact, all the things, all the sequence of events. And all the variables, the human variables.
Right.
So that's where I would go with that person.
Cool.
You hit 275?
Yeah.
So if I want to grow the muscle, I'm going to spend time feeling that stretch and making it harder to come up. Not that I'm going to have you stand there for 10 seconds or do a super long eccentric. I'll do that if I'm teaching you how to do a movement, because that'll clean up a lot of mistakes people make if you slow them down and have them go really slow. No, that doesn't build more muscle in the short term. It builds more muscle in the long term because they learn to do the movement better. They didn't realize, I had someone tell me the other day, I didn't realize I was doing this thing with my foot. And then I started going real slow and I was like, I'm doing a thing wrong over here. And it fixed everything, right?
Nice, yeah.
So in an early phase, I'll use eccentrics and isometrics to teach.
Yeah.
Once you've got it down and it's autopilot and you don't have to think about the movement anymore, let's go. Right?
Yeah.
But let's go in a way that's going to put more tension on the muscle.
Yeah.
There is a time and a place for bouncing, but we're not working, we're not, all of us are retired athletes at this age.
Right, yeah.
None of us are actually going to
Nothing will
play.
make me money from my abilities at this point.
My scholarship is not at stake. I'm 40 years old. I'm not going to get a scholarship to play football.
Right.
I'm just trying to stay alive, look pretty in the mirror, be sexy, and have some go and feel good. Okay, well, that type of training is going to be a little bit different.
Right.
It's going to be harder. It's going to be humbling, because I know that you and I, we've had you squat a lot more weight than this, but doing it that way, you'll notice you can't do nearly as much weight.
No, yeah.
And if we're going to push the reps a little bit higher, man, it gets really humbling, you know? So my advice to anybody who's starting out is keep it really, really simple. Pick movements, a push, a pull, a leg push, a leg pull. Do those 3 times a week. Get really, really monstrously, savagely good at those movements. Not heavy weights, good at executing them. Make your squat look like this, not like this. If you're doing this with 500 pounds, I don't know what you're doing, but you're not squatting. You're not savagely good at squatting. You're not good at it. You're good at putting 500 pounds on your back and making yourself tired and putting yourself at risk. But if you want to get savagely good at a squat, I want to see that. Let me see you comfortably hang out. You know? On my Instagram, there's a video of me doing, I was doing 315, and it was the first time I'd done it where no belt, no knee sleeves, no wraps. And I think I did a set of 3, but I did it like that, where it's like, it's down slow, pause. I relaxed, I took a breath, and then I stood back up. And with my back pain history, I never would have thought that was possible. But if
Right.
you're patient, that training block was about a year long, and I started it not much higher than 135. Could I do 315 when I started it? Yeah, not like that. I could squat 315 to powerlifting standards, you know,
Right.
and then some. But I couldn't do that. And so I started with a weight that was more than manageable and spent enough time there that by the time I got a weight that was gonna take my mind out of the game, like there's a load where it's like, I can still think about what I'm doing. And then there's a load where it's like, I lift or die, right? And that fight or flight response is pretty important. By the time you get to the lift or die load, you need to have had enough time with the I can think about this load
Yeah.
that it's autopilot. That now I don't need to think about it anymore. So now I can lift or die and it's safe.
Nice.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So patience is gonna be the number one thing, no matter what we're talking about, nutrition, training, lifestyle, all of it. So again, I'm gonna tell you, I want you to think about using your hip flexors to pull yourself into the squat, and remember that everything is down. We're not standing up, we're pushing down. A little bit more on the pause, just a little bit. I want you to feel that stretch. Stretch, push. Yeah, that was a good one. A little more control coming down. Nice, rack that.
We'll do one more. The numbers make sense.
Yeah, I would have. I would have racked it. You're good, but
I felt one more.
I want to see that that and leave one in the tank,
Okay.
right? And do it. I'd rather you leave one in the tank and just do an extra set
Really?
than go all out for one set.
Yeah.
You know, you'll get the same results, if not better, by leaving a few more, just 1 or 2 reps in the tank and doing more sets. Versus a barbell is one of those things I never want to take to failure.
Really?
A cable, a machine, sometimes a dumbbell. Yeah, take that to failure. Cool. Barbell I think of as skill. So we're going to get our driver, we'll get our mechanical tension by getting close to failure. But the second you have to alter your form or your execution, where it's like, okay, I'm going to have to bounce on the next rep, you're done.
Okay.
And it's better and safer for you to just do another set. Because the other thing to think about is there's neural drive and there's patterning. You're teaching your body how to squat every time you squat. So do I want to teach it to squat in a way that's going to build more muscle, or in a way that's going to put me at risk? You know, or in a way that's just going to waste my time and make me tired.
Right.
If I want to teach myself to build more muscle, every single rep, it's like when you etch your name in a piece of wood and then you miss. Well, that was your missed rep that wasn't done to the execution in line with your goals. If you're trying to be an Olympic weightlifter, if you are 20 years old and your scholarship depends on it, we're gonna use both styles of squatting. I'm gonna use a bouncier squat. I'll even do some half squats. Again, very, very specific use case. And very rarely will I do something like that. But for most of us who are like 30, 40, 50, 60, our athlete years are behind us.
Yeah.
Our family years are the now. You know, our career is in front of us. I'm hurt at the office tomorrow. It's going to affect my job. I don't want to be hurt. No one's making gains while they're hurt.
Right.
I'd rather leave those reps in the tank and only practice the reps, only practice the style that's going to give me the gains I want. So only reps I'll do will be the ones that are in line with my goals.
Right.
Right? The ego, if it's 7 reps, it's 7 reps. Go lighter, you know? You just have to accept, better safe than sorry with
Right.
a barbell. Barbell, I when I work with my coaches, I tell them this is skill, so treat it like skill, which means good reps only.
Right.
Dumbbells you can get away with more. Machines you can get away with almost anything. Cables you can get away with more. But this is always, no matter what lift it is, bench press, squat, deadlift, this is always a skill. If we're doing Olympic lifting especially, it's a skill. Even at a lightweight, Olympic lifters won't do sets of 10 on a hang clean or a power clean. They'll do sets of 3.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna clean 5, I'm gonna clean 315 today. I'm gonna warm up with 135 and do a set of 3, not 10.
Right.
Or it's my light day, it's my volume day. Well, their volume day is like, I'm gonna do sets of 6, but not more, because it alters the neural pathway, it alters the execution. So same idea here is like, only practice the reps that are gonna get you your gains. If it's like, oh, I really want that one more, and you're under a bar, it's not worth the risk. You know, having been that guy, name an injury, I've had it. I've torn a pec, I've had the back injuries, I've had knees, I've had broken bones, I've had the things. It's not worth the risk. It's not worth the time you're gonna spend in rehab.
Right.
And even if nothing bad happens, it's not worth training yourself to do a less effective rep.
Right. Yeah.
So
I'm gonna do one more set,
let's do one more set.
and then that's about it.
All right.
Probably just be able to get 5 or so this time, I think.
That's what I was thinking. So pull the bar down, ribs down, deep breath. Where's my paws at? There we go. Watch that bounce. And one more. A little more pause at the bottom. Good. So one piece of advice that I give people along those lines, especially when they're working with a bar, always try to have a spot, but lift as if you don't.
Okay, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that'll keep you safe. And then, people talk about like the butt wink and the squat, you know, that thing.
Yeah.
If you watch it, that's an indicator that you're usually just starting in hyperextension. So like that start position, I would just zip up. And then I want to learn, you have to kind of practice breath down here, but learn to inflate here along your flanks. And think about like breathing into your kidneys.
Okay.
And then get really good at that. And then you'll learn to do it up here. So here, you'll see a lot of squats that look like that, and you'll see the butt wink. But if you can learn to get into that neutral, fill it with air. I'm neutral, I'm staying neutral. And it kind of eliminates the butt wink, especially when you get the heel elevation. So it's this versus this. You see the difference? There's a lot less movement at the sacrum.
Right,
At the pelvis, at the low back. That puts more in the legs.
Right, yeah.
And less on the back. Is the butt wink necessarily bad or risky? The thousands of reps that I've seen with no pain seem to indicate not necessarily. The handful of reps I've seen go wrong because there was a butt wink. And it was minimal, but it was there.
Yeah.
Is it still worth the risk? Most guys are fine. A little bit's not gonna hurt you. But again, yellow flag, let's work on that.
Right.
So in that case, the missing piece, I'm gonna look at your hip mobility, specifically, if you can do if you do some yoga and you can do a great pigeon, probably not at risk for a big butt wink. And then I'm gonna look at your breathing. If you breathe up here, you're probably not very good at bracing. Your diaphragm is kind of the key to most of your core function. If something's going wrong there, then it's going wrong. Wrong is the wrong term. You're not broken if you're not doing that.
Right.
I've seen guys squat 500 pounds who don't breathe well at all. But could they squat 6 if they breathe better? Yeah. It's the difference between 5 and 7 is learning to do that.
Right, yeah.
So, anyway, I'd practice that breath. We'll get people down here and have them breathe into their thighs and try to expand all the way around.
Okay.
So, sometimes we'll even start our warm-ups with that before we stretch or foam roll.
Okay, cool.
And again, good for the nervous system. So
Cool.
you get good at that, apply it there.
Well, awesome. Well, I appreciate your time, Brandon. If people have questions, want to reach out to you, how do they get a
Facebook and
contact?
Instagram, TFGU or at Training from the Ground Up, I believe is our Instagram. or TFGU 2.0. It's one of those. I think it's at Training from the Ground Up. We're also on Facebook. Go to tfgu.net and contact us there. That's the best way to get a hold of us,
Okay.
including me personally. So that's usually the right answer.
Well, cool. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
It was awesome.
Yeah.